Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today we're going to be talking about the recent update with tariffs and how that impacts crypto. Are altcoins dead? Did this kill altcoins? Is the 4-year cycle broken? Is there no way that we're going to see an alt season after this? What is going on? We're going to talk a little bit about all of that. But first off, I want to go over the crypto bubbles, charts, all that type of stuff. We can kind of go into that, and then I'll explain kind of bigger picture, at least from how I'm seeing it, how this whole kind of tariff thing could kind of impact the larger crypto market. Of course, obviously things like this are highly debated and highly speculated between the crypto markets and the politically and economically, a lot of that type of stuff. I'm going to try and stay away from anything that's not directly related to crypto. So anyway, we'll kind of focus on that, but if things kind of lean into that, obviously I'll try and give as unbiased and straightforward of a take as I can. But of course I do hold my own biases, so you'll have to forgive me for any in there. As we can see with the crypto bubbles, everything very, very down today. All of this is basically on the tariff news. We can see, most alts around somewhere along 10%. Virtual is getting crushed down almost 20%, down to about the 160 range. Given that we did break kind of through this 180 range here, I would imagine we actually probably get down into like the 130 range. Given that the recent video we made, that's probably the next level of support. We can see Bitcoin only down about 2.8%. Obviously, still a ton, but not nearly as bad as kind of what we're seeing out of the rest of the market. We can see ETH down only about 6%. So it does look like the larger ones are maybe being impacted less so than the smaller ones just overall. But definitely not a particularly great day on the crypto market right now. And then also the week, very, very red. Even some of these really strong green bubbles we had seen have basically kind of faded away into nothing. So not looking particularly good. We can see, things like Pengu, Virtuals, Trump down 30 to 40% just in 1 week, which is pretty crazy. So if we look at the Bitcoin chart, we can obviously see something very similar. Now we are looking at the daily here just to kind of take a look at some of the bigger macro trends. Again, as I've mentioned, any break below this obviously causes a little bit of concern, and then any sustained break above this obviously is a good thing. We have not yet to this point really seen a sustained break. I mean, this is really the only full candle that we've ever seen closing and kind of staying above the 105,000 for more than a day. Obviously we can see here, this closes, but by the time this one closes, it's already back in. Same thing here. We've only seen wicks above this point. We've not actually seen a sustained move. And so that's kind of what we're looking at here. We can of course see this, very tiny level of liquidity. If we were to go here, we're kind of diving back into this level. If we do break through this level of liquidity, we probably are going to be finding some lows back here in the low 90s, if I had to guess. I know there are still people calling for the low 80s, maybe even high 70s. It remains a possibility, right? I mean, we do have this support level here at about the 85 range, and if we can't actually support on that, then realistically we probably are going to be seeing something along, I don't know, maybe this line. This would be about 72-ish. I mean, maybe we could even come up here to about 77. All of this remains a possibility. Even if we go up to recent all-time highs, that would be about 73-ish thousand. We could even see, that might be kind of the best level of support if we can't hold here at the 85. So we'll see. I mean, it's very hard to know for sure. I would be frankly a little bit surprised if we got back to this 73 range. Again, I don't actually know what is going to happen in the crypto market. I am not omniscient. I can't tell the future, and unfortunately, I've misplaced my crystal ball. So none of these things are of options to me. So right now, I'm basically just taking the best look at what I can see here, and based on kind of what we're seeing overall in the market. Now, of course, some of the fear I think it's reasonable and probably likely that maybe we get back down to this low 90s. It's possible that we get down to the mid 80s. I just don't know if we get back to the low 70s. There's a ton of buying pressure. There's still a ton of bullish sentiment within the wider crypto market. We can actually see that we are back into neutral. So we're finally back into neutral after a very, very long time being in a greed market. We saw this one day here where we were in neutral, and that was in the beginning, the 9th of January, we pulled back into neutral. Other than that, this is the only day we've actually been in neutral. Since, what is this? Maybe we had one, nope, not even, basically since the 13th or 14th of October is what this looks like. So, it's definitely a decent bit of time that we've been in basically a greed-only type of market. So, the fact that we are coming back into neutral, I do think is a probably fairly healthy thing. I think it's probably better for the market from a sustainability perspective. But again, Bitcoin is still near all-time highs. It's still close to 100,000. Obviously, it has broken below 100,000 just barely, but the market is holding up incredibly well. Again, if we're looking at Bitcoin, obviously altcoins are seeing a little bit of pain or a lot of pain, depending on which altcoins you're in. But the overall crypto market, or I guess I should limit this to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is holding up just fine. I don't really have any issues. I don't think Bitcoin is going to see anything major coming here soon. But again, like I said, anything remains possible. So with these tariffs, we'll have to see how this affects assets. I think right now, nothing, at least in my opinion, directly affects crypto with any of these tariffs. Now, as I mentioned on the channel before, sometimes sometimes trading this like range bound volatility, in my opinion, can be a really, really great thing to do. And it's one of my favorite things to trade, just because you kind of have a good sense on the highs and you've probably got a decent sense on the lows. So, this is something that I do like to do. I am maybe going to be opening some trades here and there. Right now, I don't have anything actively open, but if we do see, a bounce off the bottom here, I'll probably take another long. If we maybe bounce back off of this and come up to the top, maybe I'll take a short and put it very closely above, kind of this range zone. I don't know. We'll have to see. Taking a short up at this range can be a little dangerous, just because we can see how varied the wicks are up here. So the shorting up here is a little bit more of a perilous play. But if you are interested, I do have that link in the description below to sign up for BTCC. They are still doing that 10% bonus on first time deposits, which is a really, really good deal. Also, extra $10,055 per user if that is something you're interested in. I like free money. I'm sure you do as well. So I would imagine that you'd probably be interested in something like that. I do have that link in the description below if you are interested. They also don't require a VPN or KYC. So if that's something that's also interesting for you, then that's something that you can definitely check out. So like I said, description below, but we'll move on. We're going to talk about tariffs and kind of how these impacts the crypto market overall. And so the theory here is nothing like crypto itself is not actually directly impacted by tariffs. There are no tariffs that specify Bitcoin or any particular altcoin. But the problem is the wider market impacts, right? That's why people are freaked out. People aren't freaked out because anything is directly affecting tariffs. Now, for those of you who may not have a great sense of what tariffs are or how they work, what they mean, anything like that, I'll just give a super brief coverage on it. But tariffs effectively are when you tax imports from other nations. And the reason why you would do that, generally speaking, is because you have certain industries within your country that you would like protected to some degree. Think about, for example, if you had a country that had, you need food, right? Food is something that is important. So you may want to tariff external imports of food because you don't want essentially your country's like food production abilities to atrophy. Because if that were to happen, then obviously you are going to be very, very vulnerable to whoever supplies your food, or even if they just have a famine or decide they just don't want to trade with you anymore because they got a better supplier, it leaves you in a very, very perilous position. And so tariffs effectively are a way where you artificially increase the cost of goods to protect your own nation's production. So this used to be a very, very common thing. Recently, there's been a lot of like free trade initiatives and stuff like that. So tariffs, I would say, have largely kind of gone away, particularly when trading with the US, just because, that's the easy way to grow is to bring down the cost of goods. And the easiest way to bring down the cost of goods is take away these artificial taxes on them. So what we're seeing here with tariffs is effectively they're coming back, right? And some of them are coming back in force. Particularly, I think the two most shocking ones that were announced were with Mexico and Canada, 25% tariffs. It sounds like across the board. I haven't read in too much to it recently. I did get Grok with X to kind of summarize this just so we could see, because they have access to a lot of like the recent news articles and stuff. And we can see 25% tariff on Mexican Canadian imports starting February 1st, which is today, and then 10% tariff on Chinese goods. From what I understand, this is a 10% additional tariff. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's essentially what it sounds like. And so anyway, we can see, the economic impact is essentially people are forecasting it could mean higher prices for consumers, which again, of course, would mean consumers have less money to spend on crypto or meme coins or whatever. And so that is kind of the initial fear, I think, is that it could cause higher prices, which could lead to kind of an overall economic slowdown within the overall like wider market, and it could potentially lead to rising unemployment, a whole bunch of other type of stuff, which could be obviously harmful for the country. With rising unemployment, I don't necessarily know if I agree with that, just because the theory, at least with these tariffs, is they're trying to bring a lot of these jobs into the US, because obviously if you're a foreign country or a foreign company that manufactures within the US, then obviously you do not have to pay those tariffs. And so that's really the incentive there. So I am not really sure that I believe the whole gonna lead to layoffs and a whole bunch of unemployment, things like that. That's something that I guess you could look at it the other way with, if these people retaliate or if these countries retaliate, which it sounds like some of them are starting to do, both Canada and Mexico seem like they're starting to retaliate, then that could potentially lead to some layoffs and things like that if we have some super, super export focused companies within the US. So that is kind of potentially where that could happen. But from like the US issuing tariffs, that doesn't seem to be much of an issue there. Rising costs, however, do seem to be a possibility. One thing that I have heard mentioned or talked about is that these could potentially be being used as a bargaining chip. There's no real intention to actually carry out any of these tariffs and like enforce them for the long term, but they're more as a bargaining chip to get something else that we're hoping for. There are a lot of particularly European countries that kind of like the tariff is not, I guess, like even, right? So they may tariff our cars 20% while we tariff their cars perhaps 5%. And so there's a little bit of that, like things are not reciprocal there. And so I think there could be just some reciprocal actions being taken there. But overall, I'm interested to see how this works more from just like an economic perspective. I'm not sure if the actual intention is to maintain tariffs. Who knows, right? But one thing I think should not be understated is the US is probably, if it hasn't been overtaken by China yet, is probably the largest consumer market in the world, right? And so it's very, very detrimental for a lot of these companies that are wanting to import into the US. Super, super detrimental. So obviously it's detrimental for American citizens as well. Again, potentially if these do kind of continue along, but we'll have to see exactly how that unfolds. Now, again, relating it back to crypto, the thing that's important to note here is that none of this actually impacts crypto like directly. It's all indirect. The indirect comparison or the indirect impact to crypto is just essentially like people get afraid, prices start to fall, maybe the stock market starts to fall, so crypto starts to fall, people get scared with their money, they become more risk off instead of risk on, and maybe they're parking their cash in their bank account and earning 3 to 4% interest instead of going in and trying to find some 100x meme coin in crypto or something like that. That, I think, is ultimately the larger fear of what we are seeing in crypto. So overall, how does it impact Altseason? Of course, if the overall population, or globally, or even just within the US for that matter, become more risk off, then we do have a larger chance that maybe Altseason does not come around, or maybe it just doesn't come around when we think it will, right? As I've said several times on my past several videos, basically whenever I've come even tangentially close to this topic, I do always say the same exact thing, which is things don't happen when people expect them to happen, right? Because if people expected it to happen, then they would know how to prepare for it, and things would, everybody would try to front run it, right? Think about like the Great Depression, or even the bull market of 2021. If you knew Polygon was going to do a 400x in 2021, would you have bought it? Of course you would have. I would have too. Everybody would have. So that's part of the thing, is like if people know it's going to happen, then they try and front run it, and that makes it kind of not happen, just kind of by default. And so same type of thing on the other direction. If we look at like the Great Depression, if everybody knew that the banks were going to collapse and there's going to be a run on the banks and people were going to be, starving and losing all their jobs, would people have tried to prepare for that a year in advance? Of course they would have. But then at that point in time, it probably wouldn't have happened, because people would have been more risk averse, and they would have been doing crazy things that caused a lot of this excess leverage and things that ultimately caused things like that to collapse. And so that is ultimately what we need to kind of remember here. I think right now, in my opinion, the market is super, super like fearful still. And as people say, the market climbs up a wall of worry, right? And so in my opinion, people are still scared, right? Oh, the alt season may not come. Oh, Bitcoin, Bitcoin could have topped at 108K. Yeah, it could have, right? But usually this type of thing means people aren't getting too like crazy with their leverage, right? People aren't taking loans out on their house and going to go 10x long and on Bitcoin or something. Like, we haven't seen any of this just kind of ridiculous movement that kind of just departs from reality. And so because of that, I'm somewhat confident of two things. And these are probably mutually exclusive, right? One, we may continue to still see an alt season, potentially. Again, I've misplaced my crystal ball, so I can't tell you for sure, but I do think that it does still remain on the table. If everybody was like, and frankly, like my concerns with Altseason 2-3 months ago were exactly that everybody was expecting it, right? Because everybody was expecting it, I was thinking it wasn't going to happen. I mean, it could have, right? But like, we don't actually know that for sure. And so right now that we're getting to the point where we're starting to see a lot of that capitulation, people are getting all freaked out. People are like, oh, yeah, that's it. Altseason's over. We're packing up our bags. We'll see you in 4 years. That to me is actually a really good sign. I'm very encouraged by that. And that actually makes me believe that we may in fact see an alt season. The other side of that coin, or my second thing that could happen, is that maybe we don't see an alt season, right? But also on that same note, I don't think we're going to see the same type of crypto unwind that we saw in like 2021. I mean, yeah, prices might dip 10, 20, 30%, but I don't think we're going to see, 90% sell-offs wholesale across the crypto and altcoin market, just because we haven't seen that like level of leverage being wound up within the crypto ecosystem that has to unwind itself, right? It's that unwinding of some of this ridiculous, frothy, like essentially departing from reality type of behavior that causes all of that damage on the back end. And obviously it's what shoots the price up on the front end. So that's essentially kind of what I'm looking at within the wider market. Tariffs, I do think are something that could potentially impact crypto. How exactly, I still don't think we know yet for sure. But I think right now, a lot of the sell-offs and a lot of the fear that we're seeing in the market currently is just purely people emotionally overreacting to the market. Now, I could be wrong. Prices could be down, 50% a month from now. And then obviously, I would have been wrong in a big way, which of course is entirely possible. I do not know the future. I will continue to state that this is not financial advice, because I do not have any idea for sure what is going to happen. It's just based on what we're seeing right now. Obviously, the market does not look super frothy. It doesn't seem like there's a bunch of pent-up leverage within the market. There's a whole bunch of that type of stuff that I just don't think we're seeing yet. And so that, in my opinion, makes me feel a little bit better about where we're sitting. So anyway, hopefully the information in this video is useful. If it was, please do give me a like and a subscribe. It really, really does help me out. Also helps push me further on into the YouTube algorithm, and hopefully, inform other people about kind of what we're seeing within the market, explain tariffs, how it could impact crypto, a lot of that type of stuff. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, thoughts, feelings, whatever, please drop those in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of my comments. So if you have anything you want me to see, please do that. I know just kind of the innate nature of tariffs is going to be, kind of pretty political. I would say try and vaguely stay away from political comments. I don't really have much interest getting involved in political dialogue. This is a political channel, or this is a crypto channel, excuse me. I don't care so much about what's happening. The only thing I care about in politics as it regards to this channel is how it impacts crypto. And so, so far I would say just try and keep the comments related to that. Any political comments I'll probably just not even respond to, if I'm being honest. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.